All right, so today we're going to be diving deep into
Okay.
Louis Giglio's book, Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table,
Yeah.
which is all about, how to kind of wrangle those negative thoughts that can really kind of take over
Yeah, yeah.
our minds sometimes.
Absolutely.
And you know what I thought was interesting is that it doesn't come across as like this
Right.
super theological or like
Yeah.
heavy, read.
Well, he uses this metaphor that's just so relatable.
Yeah.
He talks about your mind as being like a table.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So explain that.
Well, you're constantly hosting
Right.
all these different thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
And some of them are welcome guests like peace, confidence, joy.
Right.
But then there are these other guests that show up
Mm-hmm.
that you really wish wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
The fear, the insecurity, the self-doubt.
Yeah, the party crashers.
Yeah, exactly. They're all vying for a seat at your table.
So what you're saying is that we actually get to choose who we invite to that mental party.
Absolutely. He's saying that we're not just passive bystanders
Right.
to our thoughts. We actually have way more power than we realize.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah,
But it's like, those thoughts, they just kind of barge in sometimes.
right.
How do we even begin to,
Yeah.
show them the door?
Well, he says that one of the first steps is recognizing their tactics,
Okay.
recognizing how they try to sneak in.
Mm.
He talks about these negative thoughts as being like the enemy.
Hold on, the enemy. Like, are
Yeah.
we talking about an actual, being here?
He doesn't really get too literal about who or what that is.
Okay.
It could be a spiritual force or just a general term for anything that's just kind of,
Dragging you down.
dragging you down. Exactly.
Okay.
But what's important is that you recognize the patterns.
Okay. So, what are some of those patterns? How can we spot these negative thoughts before they totally, take over?
Yeah. So think about the usual suspects.
Yeah.
The fear, the worry, the insecurity, the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
These are all kind of entry points,
Yeah.
for those negative thoughts to slip in.
So, it's not like they're going to come in,
Right.
banging on the door.
No, no, no. Being like,
Hey, we're here.
it's often way more subtle
Oh, okay.
than that. It's more like they kind of slip in disguised as a harmless worry or a passing thought.
Mm-hmm.
But before you know it, they've just kind of settled in, made themselves comfortable,
Yeah.
and they're dictating your mood and your decisions and how you see the world.
Right. They're running the whole show.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they're so good at, disguising themselves,
Yeah.
how are we even supposed to know they're there?
He talks about paying attention to your internal dialogue.
Okay.
Like what kinds of thoughts are on repeat in your head?
Yeah.
What stories are you telling yourself and asking yourself, are they based in truth or are they based in fear?
So we have to become more aware of the patterns of our
Yeah.
thoughts and be able to spot those negative ones
Yeah.
before they've unpacked and settled in.
Exactly. It's all about that awareness
Okay.
and then learning how to respond.
Gotcha.
And that's where he gets into some really practical strategies for fighting back.
Okay, so what are some of those strategies?
Well, one of the most surprising things that he suggests is,
Yeah.
you're going to love this, is Psalm 23.
Psalm 23.
Yep.
You mean the Lord is my shepherd one?
That's the one.
I mean, isn't that more of a comfy psalm,
Yeah, yes.
not a battle plan?
That's what makes it so brilliant.
Uh-huh.
He takes this very familiar passage about a shepherd and his sheep,
Right.
and he uses it as a metaphor for how we can protect our own minds and our hearts.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, think about what a shepherd does, right?
Yeah.
He provides for his sheep. He guides them to safety.
Right.
He protects them from danger. And Giglio says we can apply those same principles to our own lives.
So we're the sheep
Exactly.
and our thoughts are the places we're going.
Yeah, so we can look to the shepherd
Yeah.
as a model for how to guide ourselves towards those positive thoughts and actions and protect ourselves from those negative ones.
And the bad thoughts are the wolves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting
Yeah.
is he uses this psalm to show that even when we're in those dark valleys,
Right.
the shepherd is still there.
Yeah.
He doesn't abandon us.
So we don't have to fight those battles alone.
Exactly. We're not meant to.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's very encouraging.
Yeah, and it all comes back to that idea of choosing who gets a seat at your table.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to let fear and anxiety dominate?
Yeah.
Or are you going to invite peace and courage and trust?
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
But choosing those positive guests,
Yeah.
That's way easier said than done,
Yeah.
right? Like, how do we actually make those choices when the negative thoughts just feel so strong?
Well, that's where he dives into some really practical strategies for taking back control.
Okay.
And that's what we'll be getting into right after this.
doing
Kidding. Yeah. Gonna keep going right now.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we've talked about like noticing those negative thoughts and, using Psalm 23 to kind of protect our minds.
Yeah.
But how do we actually like evict those thoughts when they show up, uninvited?
Well, it's interesting because sometimes like the simplest things are the most effective.
Okay.
He talks about the power of literally like speaking truth out loud.
Wait, so I should be like arguing with myself out loud?
It doesn't have to be like a shouting match in public or anything,
Okay.
but it's more about like a gentle but firm rebuttal.
Mm-hmm.
When that self-doubt creeps in, you can just say, nope, not today. I am capable. I can handle this.
So like replacing the negative with a positive?
Exactly. It's like hitting the cancel button on those thoughts before they take root.
Okay, I like that. Well, what about those like really deep negative beliefs?
Yeah,
Like the ones that just feel like they're part of who we are.
Well, that's where it gets a little deeper. Giglio talks about how the enemy
Right.
tries to define us by our past,
Mm.
our mistakes, our insecurities.
Yeah.
It wants us to believe that's who we really are.
Like I'm not good enough or I'll never be able to do that.
Exactly. But here's the good news.
Okay.
He reminds us that we have a choice
Okay.
to embrace a new identity, one that's not based on our flaws, but on something much greater,
And that is...
our identity in Christ.
So for those who might not be familiar with that concept,
Yeah.
can you explain what that means?
Essentially, it means that our worth isn't determined by what we do or don't do.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we have inherent value
Because
we're loved unconditionally by God,
I see.
regardless of our performance.
So it's not about what we achieve,
Right.
but about who we are
Exactly.
at our core.
And that's where Psalm 23 comes back in.
Oh, okay.
Remember how we were talking about the shepherd
Yeah.
guiding and protecting? Well, he connects that to the idea of finding our true identity
Okay.
in something bigger than ourselves.
So it's like we're not alone in this journey.
Exactly.
We have something to hold on to, something to guide us.
Yeah, and it all comes back to that idea of choosing who gets a seat at your table.
Right.
Are you going to let fear and insecurity dominate?
Yeah.
Or are you going to invite peace and courage and trust?
So we're not just trying to silence the negative. We're trying to replace it with something positive.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got speaking truth, embracing a new identity.
Yeah.
What other tools does he give us?
Well, one that I found really relevant
Mm-hmm.
is setting boundaries with technology,
Oh, that's a big one.
especially social media.
It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game.
Oh, absolutely.
There.
And he's not saying we need to ditch technology altogether,
Okay.
but just to be mindful of how we're using it, to set those healthy boundaries.
So it's all about what we're feeding our minds.
Yeah.
Whether it's our thoughts or what we're seeing online.
Exactly.
It's all connected.
It is.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
We all slip up sometimes.
Well, for sure.
We give in to the negative thoughts.
It happens.
What does he say about those moments of imperfection?
Well, what's refreshing about this book
Yeah,
is that he doesn't pretend that we can be perfect.
right.
He acknowledges that we all stumble.
That's good.
We all have those moments where we fall short.
So it's not about being perfect. It's
No.
about progress.
Exactly. It's about giving ourselves grace.
Okay.
We don't have to earn God's love.
Right.
It's freely given.
So it's not about beating ourselves up when we mess up,
Right.
but about showing ourselves compassion,
Exactly.
like we would a friend.
And, even more than that,
Okay.
he encourages us to see those slip-ups as opportunities for growth.
So like not a failure, but a chance to learn.
Exactly. Each time we recognize a negative thought and choose a better response,
Mm-hmm.
we're building those mental muscles.
So we're training our minds
Yeah,
for like the marathon of life.
exactly. But what about those times
Yeah.
when it feels like we're running that marathon with a 50-pound weight?
Right.
When those negative thoughts just feel so overwhelming.
Yeah. That's a really good question, and it's something that he addresses in the book as well.
Okay.
He offers some really helpful advice on how to deal with those tough seasons.
Okay. So
And that's something and that's something we can explore further when we talk about those like really intense seasons. Those times when it feels like it's not just a few negative thoughts, it's like a full-on invasion.
yeah, like those wolves are like right at the door.
Exactly. And you know what I appreciate is that he doesn't just say like, "Oh, just think positive."
Right.
He gets that there are times when it's just really hard.
So what does he suggest for those times when you're feeling totally overwhelmed? Well, one thing he talks about is the importance of community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we weren't meant to go through this alone.
So like reaching out to friends or family?
Yeah, or even a therapist.
Yeah.
Just having someone to listen can make a huge difference.
It's like your own personal cheering section.
Exactly. And then he goes even deeper than that.
Okay.
He talks about the power of surrender.
Surrendering.
Yeah, surrendering those thoughts and feelings to God.
So for someone who's not really religious, what does that look like?
It doesn't have to be
Oh.
about religion specifically.
Okay.
It's more about like letting go of the need to control everything. Trusting that there's something bigger than us that can help.
So it's about shifting from like, I have to fix this to like, I can let go.
Exactly. And one of the things he says is that even in those darkest moments,
Yeah.
there's always a flicker of hope.
Like a light that never goes out.
Exactly. And that's where the table comes back in.
Okay.
Even when it feels like those negative thoughts have taken over, you still have the power to choose what you focus on.
It's like we're taking back control of the party.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that's what this book is all about. It's about empowering you to take control of your thoughts,
Yeah.
to create a more peaceful and joyful life.
This has been such a great deep dive.
Yeah,
We've learned so much
absolutely.
from recognizing those negative thoughts to finding ways to combat them to remembering that we're not alone in this.
And that even when it's hard, there's always hope.
Absolutely. And you know what I really like about this book is that it's not just for religious people.
Right. It's for anyone who wants to live a more positive life.
Exactly. And so to wrap things up,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with one final thought.
Go.
Building on that idea of the table. If you could choose one quality to always have a seat at your table,
Okay.
what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Courage, compassion, gratitude.
Yeah.
What would bring you the most peace? That's something to think about as you continue on your journey.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another one.
See you then.